Okay, in this video, we are going to create a pad sound in VCV Rack. Pads are really interesting because they are slow, they're evolving, and they tend to grow and swell in interesting ways. As usual, I've got a bunch of different modules just creating a new patch, so I'm going to select those and nuke them with the delete key. Then I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to only use the VCV brand of modules, and I'm going to start off with a Midi to CV, which if I had an external device, I would set it to Windows MIDI on a PC or Core MIDI on a Mac, and then I would choose my device. But I'm going to use a computer keyboard instead, so I make sure that says computer keyboard up top and then QWERTY keyboard here. I need somewhere for the audio to go, so I will use Audio 8 on Windows WASAPI, on Mac Core Audio, and then select your device. I am doing fancy loopback routing, so I'm going to do ASIO and then select my device that way. Okay, let's start filling this up with modules and then patching them together. So I'm going to start with a VCO as normal. Then I'm going to start adding a ADSR, which is always good for the envelopes. I am going to do a VCA mix, and I'm going to do a VCF filter. Then I'm going to get two other modules in here that are really kind of useful. I'm going to use a LFO, or a low frequency oscillator, and we're going to use that for modulation purposes. And we're also going to use delay. So let me move stuff over, and we'll just kind of fill that in like so. Okay, let's start patching. Volts per octave from MIDI to CV goes to volts per octave on VSO, or VCO. Gate is going to go to the gate on ADSR, and retrigger is going to go from MIDI to CV to ADSR. I am going to take the output of the ADSR envelope, and I am going to send that to a number of places. I'm going to send that to the filter cutoff. But beyond the filter cutoff, I can send that to a couple other places. I could send that to the output of the VCA mix. In fact, I'm going to do that because that will make things a lot easier in the long run. For the VCO, I'm going to take a square wave output. Now, the square wave is a really kind of classic sound. So we're just going to connect that into in1 of VCA mix. And let's demonstrate what that sounds like. I'm going to grab the output of mix to the input of VCF, and then we're going to take the low pass filter output to Audio 8's to device 1. Then I'm going to hold down Control or Command on a Mac, click on low pass filter output, and take that to Audio 8's to device 2. At this point, I can hear a square wave. But what I want to do is I want to play around with the pulse width on this. And you can hear it changes timbre as I move it. Now, wouldn't it be cool if I could make that happen without having to do anything? And the answer is I can. I'm going to grab the LFO, the low frequency oscillator. I'm going to take the sine wave output, connect that to the PWM input for the VCO, and then I'm going to take this modulation depth knob and increase it. Now, listen to what happens when I hold down a key. It's just subtly changing the amount of pulse width modulation. It's a little fast for my taste, so I'm going to take this down. But that sounds pretty cool. Now, in addition to using the LFO to create some timbral variation, I am also going to use the delay unit. And to do that, I'm going to hold down Control on the PC or Command on a Mac and click on this same square output of the VCO. I'm going to take that to the in on delay. So now we've got that coming out of our delay. In order to hear it, I need to take an output. I'm going to take the wet output and connect that to VCA mix on channel 2, so input 2. And here's what that sounds like. Okay, so that's a little cool, except it's getting cut off. And the reason for that is that the CV control is going to affect the overall mix. If I want to hear this, so playing around with it like that, I create a slight pad type drone, but it's not ideal. I want to refine this a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a second ADSR, or we don't even have to. We can use that drone. We just have to turn down a couple of parameters like time and turn feedback down a little bit. Then we're going to work with the ADSR to make this nice and slow and moving. So I'm going to increase the attack time considerably. Decay is going to be near 0. Sustain is going to be max, and our release time is going to go really high. So let's bring in our delayed signal and hear that. And if I wanted to, I could easily create a second ADSR and use that to control the delay signal. Just taking the envelope out and going to there, and then taking a second gate signal and having maybe nearly the exact same parameters, except for a little less sustain and a little longer release. Yeah, I really like that. So it's not necessary to use the second ADSR envelope unless you don't want the drone in there. You can always take channel 2 down in order to get rid of the drone. But I kind of like having the second ADSR, that way I can hear the blend of the two. So that is our basic pad. Let me zoom out and you can see the entire thing.